Emma Collins stared down at the faint reflection of her face in the glass conference table. Her palms were damp, her throat tight. The fluorescent lights above hummed faintly, blending with the muted clicks of pens and the shifting of restless colleagues. Across from her sat Mark Reynolds, his sharp blue tie perfectly knotted, his posture relaxed like he had all the time in the world. His voice carried that calm, smooth rhythm that always seemed to put people at ease, even when he was cutting someone else down. "You know how these things work, Emma," Mark said, his tone almost soothing, like he was doing her a favor by explaining the rules of a game she hadn't asked to play. "The executives want someone who can sell the vision, not just someone who wrote the code." Emma froze in her chair, her pulse thudding in her ears. She felt the heat of 100 words pressing against her lips, but only one came out, weak and breathless. "But it's my project." Mark smiled, that infuriating, patronizing smile he wore whenever he thought he was being magnanimous. "And I'll make sure the team gets full credit. You've done amazing work, Emma. Really. But let me handle the presentation. It's what I do best." Her fingers dug into the edge of her notebook, leaving half-moon marks on the paper. She wanted to say more, to fight, but her voice caught in her throat. She was 31 years old, a software engineer at Vertex Dynamics for 8 years. Her performance reviews were always glowing. Colleagues came to her with impossible problems, and she solved them with the patience and precision of someone who lived for puzzles. But when it came to visibility, she might as well have been a ghost. Emma Collins, invisible employee, reliable, quiet, unremarkable. Her parents had raised her to believe humility would speak for itself. Her dad used to say, "Don't shout your success from the rooftops, sweetheart. Let others sing your praises for you." That advice had worked in school, where teachers noticed her effort without her asking. But in corporate America, silence wasn't respected. It was exploited. And Emma was tired. Tired of working until midnight. Tired of putting everything she had into projects only to watch someone else parade them around. Still, she wasn't bitter. Not really. She loved the work itself, the lines of code that snapped together like puzzle pieces, the thrill of debugging something impossible, the quiet magic of building something from nothing. It was why she didn't complain when her desk became a fortress of coffee cups and sticky notes, when she missed Friday dinners with friends, when she lost hours of sleep chasing perfection. This project, though, this one had been different. 3 months earlier, Vertex Dynamics had announced plans to overhaul its client interface system, a massive undertaking that could reshape how the company worked with its global partners. The CTO, Richard Hale, had called it a moonshot project, the kind of initiative that could put Vertex on the map in a way nothing else had. Everyone in the department had wanted in. Emma had spent her lunch breaks sketching ideas on napkins, scrolling through industry blogs, imagining how an application could be more than functional, it could be transformative. By the time the first brainstorming meeting rolled around, she had already been living inside the project for weeks. When her turn to present came, she'd stood with her laptop in trembling hands, her voice uncertain at first but steadying as she spoke. Her idea was bold, an AI-driven application that would personalize client interactions seamlessly, predicting needs before they were spoken, adapting in real time, and making every exchange smooth and human-like. The room had gone quiet. Heads had tilted, bodies had leaned forward. Even Mark, who usually scrolled through his phone during team meetings, had looked up. "This is interesting," he'd said finally, nodding slowly. For him, it was practically an ovation. He had assigned Emma to lead the development right then and there. For the first time in years, she'd felt like her work might actually matter. The following months were a blur: late nights, cold coffee, lines of code stacked into infinity. She poured herself into the app, shaping every function until it wasn't just efficient but elegant. It worked like magic, and she'd built it almost entirely on her own. Mark had checked in occasionally with vague, empty questions. "How's it coming along? Need anything from me?" At the time, she thought he was just giving her space. Only later would she realize he'd been distancing himself, making sure his hands stayed clean in case anything went wrong. By the end, Emma had created something she was proud of. The application was sleek, intuitive, and groundbreaking. She had even left a subtle signature in the code, a unique series of markers only she could recognize. A personal fingerprint, hidden in plain sight. She thought that would be enough. She thought the work would speak for itself. But then came the announcement. Mark would present the app at the internal demo. Emma had blinked in disbelief. "Wait, you're presenting?" "Of course," Mark said, smooth as always. "That's my job as team leader." "Don't worry, Emma. The team will get credit." The team. Not her. Not the one who had lived, breathed, and nearly bled into the app. She looked around the room that day, hoping someone would back her up. But her colleagues avoided her eyes. Most of them hadn't touched the project. And none of them wanted to risk crossing Mark Reynolds, the golden boy of Vertex Dynamics. That night, her anger spilled out in a call to Sam Carter. Sam was in the middle of juggling flower arrangements for her upcoming wedding, but she dropped everything when she heard Emma's voice. "What happened?" Sam asked sharply. Emma explained in a rush, the words tumbling over each other. "He's stealing it, Sam. All of it. He's going to stand up there and take credit for everything I've done." "That slimy bastard," Sam muttered. "You can't let him get away with this." "What am I supposed to do?" Emma whispered. "He's the team leader. Everyone listens to him. No one will believe me." Sam was quiet for a moment, then asked a question that sliced through Emma's panic like a knife. "Do you have proof?" Emma froze. Yes, she did. That was the first spark of a plan. But proof was one thing. Using it was another. At the internal demo, Emma sat in the corner of the packed conference room, arms folded, her jaw tight. She watched as Mark strolled across the stage, his voice smooth and confident. He clicked through slides filled with mock-ups Emma had created. He gestured dramatically at screenshots of her work. "This app that I created," he said, the words slicing through Emma like a blade, "will revolutionize the way we interact with clients." Her stomach dropped. He hadn't written a single line of code. His only contribution had been nodding when she'd proposed the idea. And now, he was claiming it as his vision. The department heads applauded. Mark smiled, shaking hands, collecting congratulations. Emma slipped out of the room before the clapping ended. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. Every version ended with the same bitter truth. Mark would always win if she stayed silent. Her mom would tell her to let it go. Her dad would say her time would come. But Emma wasn't sure she could wait anymore. She wasn't sure she wanted to. The next morning, Sam cornered her in the break room. "What's the plan?" "There is no plan," Emma muttered, rubbing her temples. "What am I supposed to do? March into HR and accuse him of stealing my work? They'd laugh me out of the building." "Not if you have proof," Sam said, her voice sharp. "You said you left a signature in the code. Something only you could recognize." Emma nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, but that doesn't mean they'll care. Mark's their golden boy." Sam's expression softened, but her tone didn't lose its edge. "Listen, this isn't about what they care about. This is about you. You can't let him walk all over you. You deserve better, Em." The words clung to Emma long after Sam walked away. That night, she sat at her desk at home, her laptop screen glowing. She pulled up the code, scrolling until she found the subtle markers she had built in. Her signature. Her proof. She stared at it, her heart pounding. It was there. It was real. The only question was, did she have the courage to use it? Emma didn't say a word to Mark for the rest of the week. She avoided eye contact in meetings, gave clipped answers when he asked about the project, and kept her earbuds in at her desk even when she wasn't listening to music. It was the only way she knew how to hold herself together. Mark, of course, didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did and enjoyed it. He floated through the office with his usual swagger, shaking hands in the hallway, laughing loudly at inside jokes with managers, leaning casually against the doorframe of Richard Hale's office like he belonged there. He had a way of acting like the world revolved around him, and the cruel part was sometimes it did. Emma told herself to stay focused. She would finish her tasks, keep her head down, and let this storm pass. But at night, when she lay awake staring at the dark ceiling of her apartment, the rage boiled up again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his smirk as he said the words, "This app that I created." She tried to bury it, but her mind wouldn't let her. She saw the lines of code, the months of work, the sacrifice. She saw herself sitting in that conference room while everyone applauded him. And with every memory, the fury sharpened. "You can't keep doing this," Sam said one evening when Emma finally broke down over takeout in Sam's kitchen. Sam's fiancé had gone out, leaving the two of them sprawled at the table with cartons of cold noodles and empty wine glasses. Emma's eyes burned as she told the story again. She hated how many times she'd replayed it aloud, as if repeating it might make someone swoop in and fix it. "He's going to take everything, Sam. He'll stand on that stage and act like he built it with his bare hands, and everyone will believe him." Sam shoved her chopsticks down with a clatter. "Then don't let him. You're not powerless here. You have proof, right?" Emma hesitated, her fingers tightening around the wine glass. "Yes, but..." "No buts. You've got a signature in the code. That's more than most people ever get when their work is stolen. All you have to do is show it." Emma shook her head. "And look like what? A bitter employee trying to sabotage her boss? You know how that would play. HR wouldn't care. Richard wouldn't care. Mark has half the execs wrapped around his finger. They'd probably call me difficult and move me to some dead-end project." Sam leaned forward, her voice sharp.
"Emma,
"You have to stop letting fear run your life. If you let him take this from you, what's next? What else are you going to let them walk away with?" Emma stared at her, feeling the words cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Sam had always been like this, unapologetic, fiery, unafraid to speak when others stayed quiet. It was what Emma admired most about her, even when it stung. "I don't want to blow up my career over this," Emma whispered finally. "And what career do you have if people like Mark keep erasing you?" Sam shot back. The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Emma swallowed hard, unable to answer. When she went home that night, she didn't sleep. She sat at her desk with the glow of her laptop bathing her in pale light, scrolling through the code again and again. The markers were there, subtle, unmistakable. Her proof. Her fingerprint. She thought about her parents. Her mom's quiet smile, her dad's constant reminders to stay humble. She could almost hear his voice in her head. "Don't make enemies, sweetheart. Just do the work. Your time will come." But hadn't she been waiting long enough? The days bled into weeks. Mark became bolder. He strutted through meetings, showing off his progress with polished slides Emma had designed. He started dropping hints to people in other departments about the big reveal coming at the Tech Expo. Emma overheard him in the break room once, charming a junior analyst with talk about his vision. Her hands shook as she stirred sugar into her coffee that day. Vision. That was all it took for people to believe him. Nobody asked about the endless nights she had spent debugging alone. Nobody cared about the sticky notes plastered over her apartment walls, the migraines from staring at code until her head throbbed. Vision won. Always. The final blow came 2 weeks before the expo. Mark strolled over to her desk in that infuriatingly casual way of his, leaning on the partition like they were old friends. "Emma," he said warmly, "I just wanted to thank you again." "Really? This project wouldn't have been possible without you." Her chest tightened. She forced herself to look up at him. "You mean because I built it?" Mark chuckled like she'd told a joke. "Because you helped bring my idea to life. You've got an incredible talent, Emma. Not everyone can take a vision and make it real." Her blood boiled. She wanted to scream, to shout at him until everyone in the office turned to look. Instead, she bit her tongue so hard she tasted copper. "Anyway," Mark continued, oblivious to her silence, "I think this expo is going to be huge for us. For me, obviously, but for the whole team, too. And I'll make sure you're acknowledged." "Thanks," Emma muttered flatly. "Of course." He smiled that polished smile and walked away, whistling under his breath. The rage didn't fade this time. It sat in her chest like a live wire, sparking hotter with every step he took away from her. By the time she got home that night, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She called Sam, her voice trembling. "He's doing it again," Emma said. "He's claiming it's his vision. Like I'm just some assistant who typed what he told me to. I can't, her voice cracked. I can't let him get away with this. Sam's reply was immediate, sharp with resolve. Then don't. The expo is your chance. The biggest audience he'll ever have. You said the signature is embedded in the code, right? Then you show it. Public. Where no one can spin it or sweep it under the rug. Emma's stomach dropped. Sam, that's insane. That's not just confronting him. That's God. That's suicide. No, Sam said firmly. It's survival. You think HR will save you? You think Richard will magically see the truth? No. You've got to put it where they can't ignore it. You've got to take the risk. Emma pressed her hand to her forehead, her heart racing. The thought of standing up in front of hundreds of people, of speaking at all, made her throat close. She hated the spotlight. She hated the way her voice shook when all eyes were on her. I'll choke, she whispered. I'll mess it up. I'll make a fool of myself. Then practice, Sam said. Rehearse until you could say it in your sleep. I'll help you. We'll figure this out. And she meant it. Over the next week, Sam became her drill sergeant. They met in cafes in Sam's apartment, even once in the empty office after hours. Emma rehearsed what she would say, her hands shaking, her voice breaking, until Sam stopped her and made her start again. You're not apologizing, Sam barked one night when Emma's words faltered. Say it like you believe it. Say it like it's yours because it is. Emma swallowed hard and tried again. The application you're looking at was developed entirely by me. Louder. The application you're looking at was developed entirely by me. Sam grinned. Better. Again. By the end of the week, Emma's voice was still shaky, but there was steel under it. For the first time, she started to believe she might actually be able to do it. But the fear never fully went away. Every morning when she walked into the Vertex offices, her chest tightened at the thought of what would happen if she failed. If Mark twisted it, spun it, turned her into the villain. If Richard and the other execs decided she was more trouble than she was worth. She thought about her parents again, about their warnings not to make enemies, about her dad's constant reminders to be patient. She wanted to believe them. She wanted to believe that time and quiet work would eventually earn her recognition. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't. Not here. Not with people like Mark. The night before the expo, she sat in her apartment with a code pulled up on her screen, staring at her digital signature. It glowed back at her, steady, undeniable. It was proof. It was her. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, barely audible in the silence of her apartment. You can do this. When she finally crawled into bed, exhaustion pulled her under. But for the first time in weeks, she didn't dream of Mark stealing her work. She dreamed of standing on a stage, her voice steady, the truth shining like a spotlight no one could dim. And when she woke the next morning, she almost believed it. The morning of the Tech Expo buzzed with energy that Emma could feel in her bones. Vertex Dynamics had rented out one of the largest halls in San Francisco, a cavernous space filled with glowing screens, banners, and rows of chairs lined up beneath spotlights. Vendors from other companies had already set up their booths, showcasing futuristic prototypes, sleek robotics, and AI-driven systems. But all anyone at Vertex cared about was the main event, the unveiling of Mark Reynolds' groundbreaking new app. Emma arrived early, clutching her badge, so tightly the strap dug into her palm. She wore a navy blazer she'd borrowed from Sam, who had insisted her usual sweaters wouldn't do for a moment like this. Her hair was pinned back, neat but simple, though a strand had already escaped to brush against her cheek. The stage loomed at the far end of the hall, massive screens hanging above it, ready to project every word, every gesture. She imagined herself up there, and her stomach flipped. Breathe, she whispered to herself. Just breathe. Mark arrived 30 minutes later, all charm and confidence. He wore a tailored suit that fit like it had been made for him, and of course, he carried himself like a celebrity walking into a red carpet event. Emma caught him shaking hands with investors, smiling for photos, laughing at something Richard Hale said. He didn't even glance her way. Why would he? In his mind, she was invisible. Sam found her near the coffee station, handing her a cup she'd doctored with extra sugar. "You ready?" she asked. Emma's laugh was brittle. "Not even a little." Sam gave her shoulder a firm squeeze. "Good. That means you'll be sharp. Nervous energy is just fuel. Use it." The expo kicked off with introductions and a series of smaller presentations. Emma barely heard a word. Her pulse pounded in her ears, her hands icy, even though the hall was warm. She kept her laptop close, the presentation file with her embedded proof hidden and ready. Then Richard Hale walked to the podium, his voice deep and steady as he addressed the crowd. "Today, Vertex Dynamics is proud to present an innovation that will redefine how businesses operate. A tool designed not only to solve problems, but to anticipate them. And leading the charge on this project is one of our brightest team leaders, Mark Reynolds." The applause was immediate, thunderous. Emma flinched at the sound. Mark strode onto the stage like it belonged to him, waving slightly as the crowd quieted. "Thank you, Richard," he said smoothly. "And thank you all for being here. What we're about to show you isn't just a product. It's a vision of the future." Emma's stomach turned. There it was again, vision. He launched into the demo, clicking through polished slides that Emma had designed, his voice confident and rehearsed. He spoke about efficiency, automation, problem-solving. The audience hung on his every word. Emma's hands shook as she opened her laptop. Her proof sat there like a secret weapon, glowing back at her from the code window. She could hear Sam's voice in her head. "Say it like you believe it. Say it like it's yours, because it is." Mark reached the crescendo of his pitch. "And now, I'd like to show you the application in action." The screens lit up with the app's interface, sleek and intuitive, the result of Emma's months of painstaking work. A ripple of impressed murmurs moved through the audience. Emma's throat went dry. If she didn't act now, it would be over. Her work, her name, everything, lost in his shadow. She stood up. Her knees almost buckled, but she forced herself forward, clutching the laptop to her chest. The hall seemed impossibly long as she walked toward the stage. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Mark noticed her halfway there. His smile faltered for a split second before he recovered. And here comes one of my key team members, Emma Collins," he said lightly, gesturing toward her. "The real magic behind the curtain, folks. Give her a round of applause." The crowd clapped politely. Emma felt the heat of their eyes on her, her pulse hammering. She wanted to sit down, to disappear, but she kept walking until she reached the steps to the stage. Mark leaned toward her as she joined him, his voice low and tight. "What the hell are you doing?" Emma's hands trembled, but her voice came out steadier than she expected, telling the truth. She turned to the microphone. For a moment, the sight of the crowd nearly paralyzed her. Hundreds of faces, waiting, the lights hot on her skin, the silence pressing down like a weight. Then she remembered the nights with Sam, rehearsing until the words felt like armor. She swallowed hard and spoke. "This application," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "was developed entirely by me. Every line of code, every design choice, it's my work. I built it over months of effort, and I can prove it." Gasps rippled through the audience. Mark's face froze in a practiced smile, but his eyes were sharp, furious. Richard Hale rose from his seat in the front row. "Emma, is this true?" "Yes," Emma said, her voice firming with each word. She lifted her laptop and connected it to the projector. The screens flickered as she opened the code. "Embedded in the program is my signature. A marker no one else would know to place. It's irrefutable proof that I created this system." Lines of code filled the giant screens. Emma zoomed in on the embedded signature, a unique sequence tied to her name and time-stamped months before Mark's so-called leadership began. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, sharper. Mark stepped forward, his charm cracking at the edges. "This is ridiculous. Emma, we both know you contributed, but to claim you did it all? That's absurd. You're undermining the entire team." Emma met his gaze, her hands no longer shaking. The team did what they were asked. But the architecture, the algorithms, the interface, that was me. You didn't write a single line of code, Mark. You stole my work and called it yours. The room erupted in noise, gasps, whispers, even a few shouts. Richard Hale motioned for quiet, his expression dark. Enough, he said. We'll handle this internally. But Emma wasn't done. Not yet. With respect, sir, she said, turning back to the microphone. This isn't just internal anymore. Everyone here deserves to know the truth. And now they do. For a long moment, the silence was suffocating. Emma's chest heaved, her whole body buzzing with adrenaline. Then slowly, the applause began. One person, then another, until the hall filled with the sound of clapping, not polite, but thunderous. Emma's throat tightened as she realized they weren't clapping for Mark. They were clapping for her. Sam, somewhere in the crowd, was on her feet, whistling and cheering louder than anyone else. Mark's face had gone pale, his smile frozen, his eyes burning with fury he could no longer hide. And Emma, shaking, breathless, terrified, stood under the lights, no longer invisible. For the first time in her career, in her life, she was seen. The applause still echoed in Emma's ears long after she stepped off the stage. Her hands were numb, her chest tight, but she forced herself to keep walking until she reached the quiet backstage area. Only then did her knees buckle. She sank onto a folding chair, trembling so hard she had to grip the edge of the seat to steady herself. She had done it. She had actually done it. Sam burst in a moment later, nearly bowling her over with a hug. Emma Collins, you absolute legend, she cried. I told you, didn't I? I told you this was yours. And you killed it. Emma laughed shakily, wiping at the tears that threatened to spill. I thought I was going to faint. You didn't. You stood tall. And, did you hear them? They were with you. Every single one of them. Before Emma could answer, Richard Hale entered with two other executives in tow. His expression was unreadable, his voice clipped. Emma. Mark. My office. Now. Mark appeared from the other side of the stage, his face tight with fury, though he tried to mask it behind a veneer of calm. His jaw clenched as he walked past Emma, refusing to meet her eyes. The meeting was brutal. Richard didn't waste time. I've reviewed the code signatures. Emma's evidence is clear. Mark, do you have any explanation? Mark's mask cracked. She's exaggerating. Twisting things. You think she built this alone? She's always been too timid to lead anything. I guided her. I gave her direction. Without me, she wouldn't have. Enough, Richard cut in sharply. Guidance is not ownership. Leadership is not theft. You presented work that was not yours. That is unacceptable. Mark's face flushed red. He turned on Emma, his voice low and venomous. You think this little stunt will save you? You've made powerful enemies today. You don't know how this game is played. Emma met his glare, her fear gone. I'm done playing your game. Richard's tone was final. Mark, you're suspended effective immediately, pending a full investigation. Leave your badge with security. For a moment, Mark looked like he might explode. His fists clenched, his mouth opened, but then he saw the two executives watching him with cold eyes. Slowly, he pulled his badge from his pocket and slapped it onto the table. Without another word, he stormed out. Emma exhaled shakily. Richard turned to her. This was a mess, but you handled yourself with composure. We'll need to sort through the details, but one thing is clear. You deserve recognition. We'll be discussing your role in this project at the board level. It wasn't effusive praise, not yet, but it was more than she'd ever heard from him before. Emma nodded, her throat too tight to speak. The days that followed were a blur. News of the expo spread quickly through the company and beyond. Tech blogs picked up the story of the young engineer who had stood up to her boss and revealed the truth in front of a packed audience. Some framed it as a tale of courage, others as a scandal at Vertex Dynamics, but all of them had Emma's name in the headline, not Mark's. For once, she wasn't invisible. Mark, on the other hand, tried one last desperate move. A week after the expo, a leaked article appeared online claiming Emma had exaggerated her role, that she had been a bitter employee with a grudge. The article cited anonymous sources and painted Mark as a misunderstood visionary. Emma's stomach dropped when she read it. For a few hours, the old fear crept back. Maybe people would believe him again. Maybe she'd be dragged back into the shadows. But then Sam called, furious. You know what this is? Desperation. He's drowning, and he's clawing for anything to pull you down with him. Don't give him the satisfaction of reacting. Emma wanted to believe her. Still, she worried. Until the next day, when Vertex released a statement publicly crediting her as the sole developer of the application, confirming the proof she had presented. The article died within hours. Mark Reynolds was finished. 2 weeks later, Emma sat in the same conference room where he had once stolen her work, but this time, she sat at the head of the table. Richard introduced her to the team as the new lead on the project, her name attached to every future presentation, every press release. The applause from her colleagues felt different this time, warmer, real. That night, Emma went to dinner with Sam at their favorite diner, the one with the chipped booths and the world's best milkshakes. Sam raised her glass. To Emma Collins. No longer invisible. Emma laughed, clinking her glass against Sam's. To finally being seen. But as she sipped, she thought about